Let's talk about biosimilars. Now, this is a seminar all to itself, but assertion, assessment, and assurance are at the middle of biosimilars. Now, there's biosimilar experts here, and forgive me if I give just a brief primer to get us all starting in the same place. In 2009, the Affordable Care Act amended the Public Health Services Act to allow an abbreviated pathway for the licensure of biologics. These are not biogenerics, right? You still get a license for the entire capability, but it's an abbreviated pathway. What the heck does that mean? If it's demonstrated to be highly similar to a reference product, you may rely upon existing data, i.e. clinical and animal data, on the safety, purity, and potency of the reference product. The new licensure pathway lets you come in with a submission with less than the full battery of clinical studies. There is no abbreviated pathway for related biological products that are not intended to be biosimilar. And that takes us to a discussion of biological product. This is a little off course, but I got a whole bunch of really smart people here who are influential in our companies. I want to make sure you and your colleagues pick up on this, okay? Because embedded in the Affordable Care Act is a redefinition of biological product. The definition changed, okay? And the stuff in bold there was added. Any protein except a chemically synthesized peptide was added there. That was not previously there. Now, historically, some proteins have been approved under the FD&C Act, okay? But by March 23rd, 2020, there is an expectation that if it meets the definition of a protein, it will be under the oversight of the Public Health Services Act, which, from the point of view of the administration, that gave the industry 10 years to deal with this. I have to tell you that that sense of urgency is uneven across our sector. And so I just throw this out as an educational moment. Excuse my digression. Now, when we talk about protein and chemically synthesized peptide, we needed to have a statutory definition. This is not a definition out of Stryer or Leninger. It's from the Office of Chief Counsel, but so that we are all on the same page. A protein being any alpha amino acid polymer with a specific defined sequence, not randomized, that's greater than 40 amino acids in size. Similarly, a chemically synthesized polypeptide made entirely by chemical synthesis and is less than 100 amino acids in size, okay? And this is a statutory definition. Now, biosimilarity, I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because we need to move on, but the functional elements are highly similar and what? No clinically meaningful differences. Assert, assess, assure. Assure the quality of the experience for the patient. What this says is that the final arbiter is that there are no clinically meaningful differences between the biosimilar compounds. The triangle that we see everywhere, everybody use. This is a great triangle. And what it says is that when biosimilars come in, each one will be assessed. And this is the glory halcyon days of the CM&C development jock, because everything is based upon structure and functional characterization. And assertion, remember I said assertion? You come in and you say, I can assert in a data-driven way that my biosimilar is so similar to the reference product that I can have abbreviated PK/PD, or I can have abbreviated clinical trial work, okay? And you come in and you make your case based upon science engineering that what differences there are not relevant to the experience that the patient's going to have. So typically we use what's called the development framework. This is informal, but I think it's useful. So somebody comes in with a biosimilar and says, hey, here's our package. Look at how similar this is. The first thing that can happen is we say no. Thank you. I hope we're more polite than that. But we say no. If you want to move forward, you either need more data or file a BLA. You can still file a separate independent BLA, okay? Or we say it's similar, but you know, you're really going to need some more characterization, okay? And we'll keep it on the docket, but we're going to need this additional stuff for you to bear the overhead of saying highly similar. It may come in and they say it's highly similar. We like those. Those are good. It helps the workflow. Come in, yes, they're highly similar, and they move into the review chain. And we also have this idea of highly similar with fingerprint-like similarity. This is a seminar or a conference that needs to be had. There have been a bunch of them. What does this mean? The answer is, I don't know. Isn't that cool? Because there's an acknowledgement of possibility. There's an acknowledgement that there is new technology and new ways of looking at things, and we don't know what it is, but we want to have the door open for somebody to come in and say, this is so similar by these criteria that we don't even have to go into the clinic. And that door is open. We just haven't found it yet. There was a great session at MIT about a year ago. What does that mean? I'm of the opinion, I'm speaking as an individual, I don't think it's going to be a series or a battery of assays. I think it's going to be some kind of definition of a relation space or something like that. I had a great discussion with a guy who won an Emmy with ESPN. If you ever see them, how they overlay Tiger Woods' golf swing, you know, those from multiple different tournaments, right? Those cameras were all in different places at different times, but he found a way to manage the digital data, you know, to do that. All he's doing is, you know, he sees Tiger Woods swinging, I see higher order protein structure. Yeah, and we had a great discussion about this. It was, we both got like all excited, you know. Currently, as of February 28th, we've had 62 requests for biosimilars meetings, development programs for 13 reference products. Do the math. Some people are going after the same thing, okay? I want to emphasize to you that the CMC understanding, the QBD, and the process development program are, in fact, very, very valuable business assets in this competitive space. To date, we've had 22 INDs for biosimilar development, and we have not yet licensed any biosimilars. Now, what about Fidacia? So when biosimilarity was, I told you that this came out as part of the Affordable Care Act, and you all may not remember, but there was some concern about the assertion, assessment, and assurance of Obamacare. Okay, there were some folks, there was a little bit of challenge. You may have heard about it on the radio or something. And so this went through the courts and went through a lot of the southern states and went to the Supreme Court. And about the time that the Supreme Court came out with their decision supporting Obamacare, this law was also passed. And it didn't hit NPR the way that a lot of other stuff does. If you already know all about this, I apologize, but I want to bring it to your attention because this is really interesting. So what was in this? This was a big bill. This was a big law, okay? There are 11 titles to Fidacia. Feel free to print it out and read it. I don't advise it. You're going to hurt yourself. Go Google it, find some really bright young lawyer that posted a PDF of bullet points, okay, you know, to get it. But there is a lot of stuff here. Everything from the different user fee acts, particularly the biosimilar user fee acts. People in the biosimilars business should really understand that. GDUFA, the Generic User Fee Act, the Medical Device User Fee Act. Why is CDRH having much more of a presence in your plants? Looking at combination products, pre-filled syringes, things like this. Those inspectors are going to be out there a lot more. They're being funded by the Medical Device User Fee Amendment, okay? Pediatric drugs and devices, medical device regulatory improvements in Fidacia. Again, understand for combination products, a lot of our stuff's in pre-filled syringe or cartridges or pens. That comes into play in the biotech sector. Drug supply chain oversight, generating antibiotic incentives. We need new antibiotics. The business case may not be there. Congress decided to provide an additional business incentive. Drug approval and patient access, drug shortages, and my favorite, other provisions. So this could go on and on and on and on, but I want to pick a few things just to share with you. This is just Title VII. I'm not even going to read that bad boy, okay? Look at everything that's under Title VII. But what it's doing, it's addressing assertion, assessment, assurance of your global supply chain. I know what my global supply chain looks like and how it's controlled. Here's how I monitor it. Come in and look at it. And here's how I know my global supply chain is going to be stable. Or not so much. But this is where Title VII says is that the license holder for a biotech product is responsible and accountable for that supply chain. This is not guidance, this is statute. So there's a few things that are in here I'm just going to pick on. These are just some topics. For instance, FDA, this is a lot of work for us. I'm just being honest with you. We have to provide a unique facility identifier and database information for every facility that makes drugs, including risk-based information. But we're on it, okay, and we're working on it. There are 7 pharmaceutical companies in China that use the same name. That's okay, they have different UFIs. Drug may be deemed adulterated, the dreaded A word, if manufactured, processed, packed, or held in any establishment that delays or denies inspection. We can declare all of that drug adulterated. This is a very valuable asset for some gamesmanship that's going on. The term GMP includes implementation of oversight and controls over the manufacture of drugs. If you have oversight and control, you are responsible for that GMP compliance. Saying, well, I just signed the check, doesn't work. Revised constraints and permissions on sharing pharmaceutical inspection related information between us, the EMA, and other regulatory bodies. There's a lot more sharing going on, and you know what? When we compare notes, interesting stuff comes up. And I'll leave it there. But this is a brave new world, okay? Wow. Particularly when we're told different stories. FDASIA also requires a regulated person in the supply chain. By the way, anyone with ethics would do this. FDASIA makes it criminal to not report counterfeiting or safety-related information. Being silent is being complicit. This is providing a significant emotional event to some of the global players. So please be aware of it. FDASIA Title IX, breakthrough therapy. You need to know about this. What do we mean by breakthrough? It has to be a serious condition. There's preliminary, pretty early clinical evidence that says, head-to-head controls or add-on controls that says, hey, this puppy's going to work. And it may demonstrate substantial improvements over available therapy. You apply for breakthrough consideration. This is in FDASIA. If approved, you get all of the fast-track stuff, rolling submissions, frequent meetings, but also you are front and center when it comes time for us guys to assign headcount, okay? And we throw people at it. We've got budgets and headcount too. We throw people at it. We work to design the most efficient and effective development program to confirm the benefit to the patient, to make sure that we're actually right, and if we're right, to support approval very, very quickly. Early and sustained attention to incipient development programs. The development programs may be immature at this point, or it's necessary to support timely approval. And this is where the company needs to make the decision, are you going to partner up with FDA? Because this old thing of I'm not telling the FDA nothing because only 2 things can happen, nothing and something bad, that ain't going to work if we're trying to pull this guy forward and knock a couple of years off the timeline. So that's a strategic decision. That's a cultural decision. That's a business decision. In fiscal year 2013, we had 92 requests for breakthrough designation. That's the first year. That's a lot for the first year. 89 were acted upon in less than 60 days. How well you know the FDA will tell you what a big deal this is, okay? So that's pretty good. That's 97-something%. 31 of those requests were granted. We said, yes, we agree. No one has a merely average child. I mean, everybody, remember when suddenly you had expedited review, then everybody submitted expedited review? Everybody's baby is breakthrough? Not really, not so much. But 31 requests were granted and 52 were denied. So far, by March 7th of this fiscal year, so it's not for the full fiscal year, we've received 39. 39 out of 39 were acted upon in less than 60 days. 8 requests were granted and 15 requests were denied. And we're really working through on this. Now, for us guys that are here on the development and manufacturing side, be aware of this guidance. This is another talk, another seminar. I'm not going to beat into the ground, but be aware of this guidance. It's out there at fda.gov. But basically, it's about the program, and there's this little piece in there, Section 9, manufacturing and product quality considerations. Okay? And I pulled out a little section here. When a sponsor receives, not a year later, when a sponsor receives breakthrough designation, there is an expectation that they can come in and talk to us and say, here is our plan for manufacturing. Here is our plan for how we're going to supply the market. Notice it doesn't say you have to have your process fully validated, you have to have contracts signed for all of your plants, you have to have built the bad boy. But we expect you to come in and say, we're on top of this, we have the patient in mind, we're all about providing a positive patient experience. This is not about the press release to Wall Street. This is about, we are able to provide this experience for the patient, and here's how we're going to go about doing it. We have uncertainties, here are uncertainties, let's work together and figure out how to do it. And some folks are good at this, and some people are not so good at it. But, we're all friends here. I gave you my email address, right? We mean it. Okay? Now, FDA has to walk the talk too. FDA has to be about assertion, assessment, and assurance. Because we can be up in the gondola, we can be down in the field. The same kind of stuff's going on. And something you may be hearing a lot about is the proposal for standing up an Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. This is currently going on in HHS and in CEDAR. If executed, because this is a proposal, I have to be careful with my language, this will be a big deal. I'm of the opinion this will be a very good thing, capital V, capital G, capital T, if we can all execute it well. So stay tuned. Give you a flavor for this. This is a big reorganization of the drug quality components of CEDAR, okay? And we're going to take, the goal is that there's an alignment of quality review for generics, over-the-counter drugs, small molecule innovators, biotech products, okay? That's the, that's the goal, What we're doing is we are combining a coordinated organizational process for all of these things into a single office for product, process, and policy that's going to address the mission better. And it's going to contain, that's a $50 paragraph. Let me tell you what we really did. We took O&D-QA and OBP, for those of y'all that know the alphabet soup of FDA. We took the chemists from the Office of Generic Drugs. We took all the guys from the Office of Compliance in CEDAR who are not working on criminal actions. The guys working with the FBI are still with them, okay? We took all those guys. We took all the labs in the Office of Testing and Research, including all the people out in St. Louis, and we blew them up. And the Legos went all over the floor like my son's bedroom. And we gathered up all the Legos, and they're still black rectangles and still red squares, but we reassembled the Legos into different structures, some of which look very, very similar and some of which are going to look very, very different. But the purpose is to provide a different experience. It's QBD for what we're trying to do. And you know what? It's not easy. And I hope, and we will make mistakes, but I got to tell you, it's directionally correct. We're currently reviewing this. This is big and complex, particularly in a government setting. What are the organizational drivers? Frankly, a shift to risk-based actions with risk defined as risk to the clinical performance of the drug. Something that provides a high risk should get more attention. Something that provides a low risk, quite frankly, should get less attention. But it's not risk to the market, it's not risk to the company, it is risk to the patient. Also, we're doing a lot of modernization of the organizational structures. We're going to have centralized project management. If you've ever worked with a project manager at the FDA or a project manager in your company, you know they do different things. Now, the good or bad or right or wrong is just a fact. We're going to modernize project management. We're going to have a centralized quality management system for the whole group. And yes, we will have SOPs, and yes, we will have an audit. And in November, I'm conducting an audit of my office. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the reviews, and I'm going to ask the question, when they request information from you, do they explain to the company why? And I'm going to look at that in November. And we're going to have centralized training and development. We're going to have centralized admin practices that hopefully will let me get good plane tickets to conferences. And we're going to formalize governance structure. The idea is that there's one quality program for all of these drugs, and that the focus will be on quality expectations for clinical performance. This is the proposal for the super office. OPQ will be a super office. There will be 8 sub-offices underneath it. A single office of policy, so that we can speak with one voice for all of these. When we review guidance, when we review directions, there will be a centralized office of policy, an office of operations that will manage the workflows, your submissions, questions, responses to inspections and reviews. An office of surveillance. This alone is wicked cool. Okay? We have a lot of data at FDA, and we don't do a very good job of managing it. And there is a lot of big data out there. And we're going to form an office of surveillance that is going to be asking the question, how's it going? Not molecule by molecule by molecule, but perhaps for a company. Has the last 4 submissions from this company been a little rough? They all passed, but boy, they're on the hairy edge 4 times out of 4 times. Maybe we should manage that risk differently. What's the inspection risk look like? These guys have had a whole bunch of really solid, good inspections. Why are we hassling the poor souls? Let's go after some bad guys. What about for a sector? Rheumatoid arthritis, how's it doing as a sector? How's it going? Office of Surveillance. Office of New Drugs and Office of Process Facilities will be focused on small molecules. Office of Lifecycle Drugs, those are the 3 for small molecules. As something comes through as an innovator and becomes a generic, as it moves through the supply chain and is moved from geography to geography or from company to company, how's that going to play out? Office of Testing and Research. You may or may not know this, but particularly for biotech drugs, we frequently request samples for you. Do you know what we do with them? We run your assays. And if you don't know that, it's because we're not picking up the phone and calling you because it went pretty well. Now, those of you who do know it, it may be because you received a phone call. Okay, and sorry. But we need to be able to have 21st century tools within FDA to let us do 21st century reviews, and also to have a thorough understanding of the assertions that are being made in a data-driven way. And finally, the Office of Biotech Products, our group. Curiously, the Office of Biotech Products is going to have the fewest changes of all of these groups. And that's interesting as a biotech community why that is. And it's worth thinking about, and it's worth talking about during the break. Because you know what we do? We do assert, assess, assure. And we kind of don't even think about it. Remember when PAT came out and we're like, oh, big deal, you know, PAT. And we said, well, you know, I have feedback loops in my bioreactor now. You know, the biotech world is comfortable with a lot of these things. So in the real world, what does risk-based decision-making mean? In the real world, unfortunately, it's not about risk to the patient. It's frequently risk to my career, risk to my stock price, risk to my timeline. We need to think about this together. Whether we make the choice to embrace it or not, we need to understand that what FDA is going to be talking about now is risk to the patient. And the short-term and long-term risks are different, and the risk to me, to them, to us is different. But we need to understand what's going on here in a systemic way. Management of residual uncertainty could mean higher order structure or moving from plant site to plant site. Frequently, it means how am I going to communicate across all of these different components and manage the anxiety and residual uncertainty in this landscape. And frequently, instead of saying I have a multivariate analysis of a risk-based design space, what I do is I say pass-fail. And this is a problem. We have a challenge right now. We need to find a way to take multivariate probabilized outcomes and develop a vocabulary other than pass-fail, because when it goes into the QA group, they take all this sexy probabilized outcome and say, well, did it pass? And that drives a certain culture. That drives a certain mindset. When we apply lean principles to our control strategies, do you have to have this control? So if I don't have it, will a patient have a bad event? Are we going to use the patient as the canary in the minefield? As long as I don't have dead bodies in the street, it's all okay? What? Applying FMEA to communication practices. We have to quit doing that. We have to quit message managing. And here's the reason. It's not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's non-value adding. The energy that goes in to FMEAing, the message that we're sending to FDA, is energy that is not going into FMEAing our processes. Good news. Is there good news? We're biotech-y kind of guys here, okay? And biotech-y kind of guys, well, fortunately, we've retained some of our differences. The biotech community is a complex ecology of vendors and innovators and build-uponers and contractors, but it's based upon a vocabulary of assert, assess, assure. When people came out, Vic, in the beginning, when we came out and said, by golly, we can clone this bad boy and make medicine from it, you had to convince people that monsters weren't going to jump out of the tank. I mean, it sounds absurd. You know, I worked on Humalog, which was the first non-natural sequence protein. 2 amino acids were swapped on a small peptide, and now we kind of, yeah. At the time, people were bugging out. What's going to happen to the immunogenicity? You know, oh my God, we're going to give this to children. We're accustomed to this. The biotech community is full of systems-based thinkers and probability managers and multivariate space cadets. The biotech community is very well positioned to pivot and innovate and dialogue and develop new metrics because we do it every day. We just don't all do it together in an open, honest, and forthright way. It's not just about the molecule. It's about all this other stuff. It's about the three-legged stool. It's about data-driven assertions, risk-based assessment, credible assurance, interdependent capabilities, reproducible patient experiences, sustainable processes, and it's about professional integrity and truth-telling. It is. And it's about an attitude. The good news is that most of the biotech companies have that attitude, and assert, assess, assure is a very good subtitle for the biotech story as a whole for the last 50 years. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.